Hey YouTube, welcome back to my channel. So this video is going to be about DPDR. But before I get into the details, I just wanted to mention that I am offering one-on-one supportive coaching Monday to Friday from 1 to 5 p.m. Mountain Time. That's when I've opened up my calendar. I am offering it at lower rates than other places you might find online. So if you're interested in that, I will put the link to my online booking calendar in the description of this video. Also, if you have just a single question to ask me, feel free to email me. I will leave my email address in the description box as well. Please just keep it brief as I don't have time to answer lengthy emails anymore. So yeah, on to the details of the video. Someone had requested that I make a video about this, so I'm just gonna get right into it. So DPDR stands for depersonalization, derealization. I have mentioned before that I didn't deal with a lot of this in my withdrawal, but I know that it's a really, really common symptom no matter what drug you've taken, whether it's antidepressants, benzos, antipsychotics. And from everything that I've gathered and learned, it's a protective mechanism. So when the brain gets overloaded with stress, overloaded with too much stimulus, it sort of checks out and it can enter into this state of DPDR. And I did have it briefly in my first withdrawal, and I'll explain what the symptom was like for me. And then I did have it briefly when I came off my second round of drugs, which I took 8 different drugs, including benzos for 3 months. I was cold turkeyed off everything. And actually, I think it was more right before I started benzos. So when I had reinstated my original SSRI, gotten akathisia, and then I was polydrugged with different drugs, it was actually right before I took benzos that I had DPDR that second time. So the first time around, I mean, I haven't been officially diagnosed with DPDR, but this is what I believe I was experiencing when I had this one symptom. So after my first withdrawal from SSRIs that I took for 7 years, I would get these episodes where, well, it manifested in a few different ways. It's like my brain would completely check out and it would be present in another location. It was really trippy. Like I would be in a grocery store in my mind, shopping around, and it felt like more than just a thought. It almost felt like time travel or location travel. And I would be like physically in this grocery store in my mind, and I'd be shopping and pulling things off the shelf, and I'd be putting them in my cart, and I couldn't snap out of it. And it was like I was completely spaced out. Or if I was standing in one spot, like standing on a floor somewhere, it was like I would suddenly see myself from above. It was like a video camera was panning above my head and I would see myself from above. Or if I was driving, I would suddenly check out mentally and I would see myself from the back of the car. So I would see the back of my car, I would see the back of my head, and it was so hard for me. I probably shouldn't have been driving in that situation because it was like I couldn't see myself or my view in the first person anymore. It was really trippy and it was hard for me to snap out of it. I didn't have that symptom for very long, but when I had it, it would freak me out. Like, how come I can't kind of get back into my body? And that was my experience of DPDR, or what I call DPDR, from SSRI withdrawal. And then when I reinstated that same SSRI and got akathisia, and then I took antipsychotics, more SSRIs, gabapentin, and then because my symptoms were so bad because I was having adverse reactions to all of those drugs, I ended up taking Ativan for 3 months. And before I took the Ativan, I remember one night, I think it was the stretch of time when I hadn't slept for 5 nights straight. And I remember pacing around the apartment and I was just checked out. I remember the sensation like the walls were closing in on me. I couldn't relax. I couldn't lay down. There was no chance that I was sleeping, even though it was my 5th night of no sleep. And I remember laying down on my bed in my room and I was just not present. It was like I couldn't connect inside my body at all. I was checked out. It's so hard to describe. It was like not being grounded or present in my own body, and it freaked me out. And I was like, come back, come back, come back, come back to myself, come back to myself. And I remember having a panic attack or starting to have an anxiety attack because I couldn't feel present in my body, if that makes any sense. That was my experience of it. I know that from talking to others and from different information that I've come across of people going through withdrawal and reactions to these drugs, they'll see it as or they'll sense that they're inside a fishbowl, or that they're viewing life or experiencing life with a veil over their face or over their eyes, or they're seeing through glass. Or some people have described it as everything around them looks like a cartoon or a Nintendo game, or everything looks two-dimensional. I know some people are very, very distressed by DPDR, and it can be associated with akathisia or not from all of the information that I've gathered. But again, it's apparently, so there's like a mosquito around my nose. It's a defense mechanism of the brain. I mean, you can get it without ever taking psychiatric drugs. I did have brief experience with DPDR. I call it my first sort of mental breakdown. It was in 2004. It was 7 years before I ever took my first SSRI. And I don't know what triggered it, but I went through a brief period of time where I was having mental health problems, nothing like I experience now, like not even close. And it wasn't the reason I took medication. Like I said, it was a brief, I don't know, it was 2 months maybe, where I was having these weird episodes of like panic attacks and intrusive thoughts, and I was having these episodes where I just felt mentally checked out and I couldn't come back into my body, and my family looked foreign. That was another thing. They seemed unfamiliar to me, and I suddenly felt like I was in someone else's body. And I never went on these drugs for mental health problems. I went on them when I got laid off from my job and felt depressive symptoms because of that. So it was situational. But I did have this one weird mental health episode at age 22 in 2004. I don't even know what it was triggered by, and it went away and I never had it again. And then 7 years later I went on SSRIs. But I know that this is a really distressing symptom. But again, I don't like to really pull apart all the symptoms when it comes to these drug injuries, because I do believe that it is overlapping, overarching, the same injury. It's the same cause, it's the same root cause. It's whatever these drugs affect in the nervous system, whether it's the vagus nerve, I've heard the basal ganglia of the brain. I don't know if it's the amygdala, like the fear center of the brain. I don't know if it's a combination of those things. I don't know if it's different for everyone, but it does seem like overall it's just, it creates this overactivation, this overstimulation in the nervous system that manifests itself differently in different people. But I've also mentioned in videos that it does seem like there's this split where a lot of the people, it seems like more of the majority of the people get this overactivation and overstimulation, but there's another side of this, or another part of this drug injured population, where it's like their nervous system completely shuts down and they get more the muscle wasting, the muscle weakness, the severe fatigue, the heavy limbs, the cotton brain. I don't know if you'd call that DPDR, or like the cognitive issues, the memory issues. It's like everything shuts down, and then in other people it's like everything's jacked up. And I don't know why that is, and I don't know how the nervous system is responding differently in those two different populations. That part really stumps me. I don't know, I don't understand that whatsoever, and it doesn't seem to matter which drugs people took. Some people just respond that way, where everything shuts down. And I've heard of people having DPDR in that state as well, but it's much, much more common from what I've heard and seen in the people whose nervous systems go, completely jacked up and wired all the time. So I think, like, what comes to my mind sort of instinctively, I didn't suffer again from this symptom for very long, so I never felt like I was really having to try to, I guess, cope with it. It just went away on its own, but I'm wondering if grounding would help. So I've had lengthy conversations with a good friend of mine who also is drug injured, and he's been having a lot of success. He's a severe case with grounding, and so just getting your feet into the earth, whether it's in a garden, whether it's on the grass, and spending at least 30 minutes grounding. And I don't know if you have to be doing necessarily anything specific while you're grounding. It might be helpful also to do some type of walking meditation or whatever. But there's a lot of, it seems like there's more and more science coming out about how it really can lower inflammation in the body, which I think is a contributing factor in this. I think the body becomes inflamed when we have these injuries to an extent. And it also is calming to the nervous system. I think it might have effects on the vagus nerve. I don't know for sure about that one, but I'm wondering if that would be helpful to try to bring you back into the present moment, doing some of that grounding, reconnecting with nature, reconnecting with the earth. That's just kind of my hunch, my instinct. That's what I would be trying if I was suffering from DPDR. I try to do that anyway, you know, just for general health, and I know it has a lot of health benefits. So that's my experience with DPDR. And like I said, what I described also is what I've heard of other people's experiences and how their DPDR manifests. And again, I think a lot of the symptoms overlap, because then you could carry that into the anhedonia, where people don't feel anything. So I'm wondering if that's also connected to that disconnect, where you're not really in your mind, you're not really in your body, you're just kind of checked out, and everything just looks funny and your perception is really off. And I think that could again then connect into an anhedonia, where you don't feel joy, you don't feel normal positive emotions, you don't feel love, you don't feel peace. Again, I think the symptoms, so much of it overlaps that it's hard to sort of put things into categories and into boxes. I don't know. But I guess we as humans like to label things, and you know, it's helpful to connect with other people with similar symptoms. So that's how I think of DPDR and how I've heard it described and seen it described. So I don't know. I hope that's helpful. Let me know if you've suffered with DPDR in the comments, and how that presented for you, and if you found anything that helps, because I know there's other people that'll read the comments, and anything we can do to sort of help each other in this community I think is beneficial. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say about that. Again, if you're interested in some coaching, I'll leave the link in the description, and also my email. And yeah, it's almost bedtime here. I'm going to head to bed soon. And if you have any other topics you want me to discuss, I still am thinking about doing a live video. I've had some requests to do that. So I'll keep you posted and give you some advance notice if I do decide to do that. But take care, everyone, and I'll see you next time. Bye.